Golden Radio Hour.
Fed up with shoveling snow? Can't shake that cold of yours? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you escape.
You were alone in a remote village on the Welsh border, surrounded by silent townspeople who were watching and waiting for you to decide to lose your soul.
Escape. Produced by William N. Robeson and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Today we escape to a remote section of Wales and a strange village between two worlds, as Algernon Blackwood described it in his eerie story, Ancient Sorceries.
I had spent a week's vacation in Wales and was returning to London by train when it all began. It was late afternoon. We'd left the Welsh mountains and crossed the border into western England, passing through a countryside which appeared singularly empty, deserted of life. Over the soft hills and the valleys between hung a faintly perceptible haze, giving to the whole landscape a feeling of enchantment and unreality. The train slowed at length to stop at a tiny wayside station. As it did so, a sudden thought occurred to me. Why not leave the crowded train with its irritating noises and spend the night in this peaceful spot, then take a slower and emptier train in the morning? On the impulse, I rose from my seat, and the man sitting opposite me said,
Why say, sir? We only stop here for a minute or two. If you were thinking of walking about a bit.
No, matter of fact, I'm getting off here.
I thought you were going to London.
I'll go on in the morning. I'm going to stay here for the night.
I strongly advise you not to.
I beg your pardon?
This is the village of Malton.
Malton? I've never heard of it.
Few people have, outside. But if you place any value on your soul, you'll not spend the night here.
What are you talking about? Why not?
Because of the sleep. And because of the cats. That's all I can tell you.
You're insane. I'll take my bag now, if you don't mind.
You're making a terrible mistake. You may not even get the chance to regret it. Don't leave this train. I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, what utter nonsense.
Don't, I tell you.
Goodbye. I stood there on the embankment as the train pulled away. What was the matter with the man, anyway? Cats, sleep. His words made no sense. I picked up my bag and started walking up the long hill toward the village, and suddenly, for no reason at all, I shivered. Hello? Hello, is anyone here?
Yes?
Oh, I didn't see you at first.
Is there something I can do for you, sir?
Why, yes, I saw your sign outside the Inn of the Golden Bough. I should like to get a room.
You're planning to stay here?
Why, yes.
Very well. You may sign the register. Here.
Thank you. I'm going to catch another train and go on in the morning.
Yes, of course.
There we are.
Arthur Llewellyn. Llewellyn?
Yes, from London.
Arthur Llewellyn. You've been a long time coming back.
What?
But now that you're here, you'll find there are some things that never change.
Madam, I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about.
You rang, madam?
Dundreary, the gentleman would like a room for the night. His name is Arthur Llewellyn.
Aye, so it is. Welcome back to Malton, sir.
I knew I'd never been here before. What was it all about? First the men on the train, and now these people. Were they crazy, or was I? Oh well, I left the inn and walked along narrow cobbled streets, beneath quaint gables leaning out from the silent shuttered houses, through dappled pools of light and shadow. As I walked, it gradually dawned upon me that the village of Malton was centuries old, older than any town in England ought to be. And the people I passed now and then were dressed in the fashion of another day. They paid no attention to me, went silently about their own business. Yes, that was it. That's what I'd been noticing. Silently. As I walked, I noticed they came and went with only soft padding sounds to mark their passing, as though they walked in shoes with soles of velvet. When I stopped, there was no sound. The silence was unbroken. I hurried through the streets and came at last to the far side of the village, to a place where the hill broke away sharply from a low, flat wall of stone, perhaps a rampart once. I sat down upon it, and the dreamy tranquility of the place stole over me. Presently, I don't know how much later, I became aware of the sound of weird music rising out of the vale below me. I looked down from the rampart. The sunken plain at the bottom melted away into a sea of gathering shadow, blurred into a swirl of thickening mist. I thought of dead trees swept by the night wind, of animals with half-human voices singing to a white moon, of the wailing of cats on the roof tiles at night, of unearthly creatures far off in the sky calling to one another in chorus. I felt my heart beat faster and faster, felt the vague stirrings of some urge inside of me trying to answer the awful call of that music. I fought against the feeling, fought against myself. And even as I did, I found I was staring down into that valley, peering desperately into the dark mist, trying to see I don't know what. And then suddenly, the music ended. I stood on the rampart alone, dusk fallen about me, and the early night wind moaned with a chill breath. Quick terror rose up in me. I turned and ran on through the darkened streets, ran with heart pounding, dodging its shadows, through one dim alley after another, and arrived at last panting and almost breathless at the door of the Golden Bough.
You've been a long time returning, Mr. Llewellyn. It's past 7.
Yes, I guess I walked farther than I meant to. I didn't realize it was so late.
You heard the music, didn't you?
Yes. Yes, the strangest music I've ever heard. How did you know? Who plays it, anyway?
Then you didn't remember it?
No. Why should I? The thing was becoming irritating, this quiet insistence that I was someone else. I went into my lonely dinner and ate as quickly as possible. Then, taking the candle Dundreary gave me, I crossed the lobby, climbed the stairs behind the desk, and walked past silent doors down the long, empty hall that led to my room at the end. I was halfway to my door when suddenly the flame of my candle went out. I stood stock still in the pitch blackness, fumbling for a match. And at that moment I knew that someone or something was there with me in the darkness. I held my breath and listened. There was no sound, no movement. I reached out and found the wall and moved along and feeling my way in the inky blackness. It was then I touched it. Near my face, another soft, warm yielding. And alive. Who is it?
It is I. Ilse.
Who?
Ilse. Don't you remember me, Arthur?
No. No.
But wouldn't you like to remember me? Don't you want to see me again? To look at me? Now?
I don't know.
But not tonight, Arthur. Perhaps tomorrow. 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 Tomorrow.
I stumbled blindly through the door of my room and shut it behind me. I lit the candle and flung myself across the bed. The room was small, with one shuttered window, and the light of the flame flickered on the walls and ceiling. I stared at the hand that had touched her out there in the dark hall. I lifted it to my face and smelled the barbaric scent that still clung to my fingers. It was evil and maddening. The candle sputtered and burned, and the melted minutes dripped away. Who was I? Who were these people? Who was Ilse? I fell asleep finally, and dreamed of soft moving creatures and the silence of life in a dim, muffled world devoid of all feeling but ecstasy. And I dreamed, too, of cats.
You slept quite late this morning, Mr. Llewellyn.
Morning, Dundreary. I felt as though I'd been drugged.
The night air here in Malton is very conducive to sleep.
I'd meant to catch the morning train to London. Now it's too late.
What a terrible shame.
Yes, Oh, by the way, Dundreary.
Yes, Mr. Llewellyn?
Do you... I mean, I was wondering if you'd know anyone by the name of Ilse.
Ilse happens to be my daughter, Mr. Llewellyn.
Oh, I didn't hear you come in.
I hope you were able to sleep well, without unpleasant dreams.
I guess so.
I'm so happy to hear it. Perhaps then you may decide to stay with us for a long time.
That's very kind of you.
No, it's not kindness, Mr. Llewellyn. But all of us are hoping that you may decide soon.
Decide? Decide what? It was no use. None of them would answer my questions. They seemed to think I should know already. I left the inn as soon as I'd eaten, walked around the streets of the village. I began to notice I was never completely alone. If I turned down an empty street, someone always stepped from a doorway or entered from the opposite end. Wherever I went, within 5 minutes, a dozen people were strolling near me. And I realized these people were watching me tensely, as a cat watches a mouse or another cat.
It's quite fortunate you came back early, Mr. Llewellyn. Your dinner this evening is a rather special one.
Special? What do you mean by that?
You ought to have a guest.
Oh, who?
An old friend. She's coming now.
The girl who came toward us across the room was lithe and slim. She moved with the sinuous grace of a young panther. She was lovely, exotic, and terrifyingly beautiful.
May I present Mr. Arthur Llewellyn, Miss Ilse? He's been with us for 2 days.
Yes, I know. My mother told me. May I sit down, Mr. Llewellyn?
Hmm? Oh, yes, please do. Here, permit me.
Thank you. You may serve us, Dundreary.
Thank you, Miss Ilse.
Then, you're Ilse?
Yes. Don't you remember me, Arthur?
From last night. It was you last night, wasn't it?
Yes, and other nights. Can't you remember all the other nights?
No. No.
Then we shall have to try that much harder. It's been such a very long time.
Please, Ilse. What is it all of you talk about? I don't understand any of it.
You will, Arthur. Unless you leave, of course. Weren't you planning to take a train to London in the morning?
Yes. No. No, I've changed my mind.
I'm glad you did. We'll try to make you happy here, my mother and I. And then perhaps you'll stay a long, long time.
No. I must leave for sure in a day or two.
Suppose we wait and see. And meanwhile, if there's anything you want, all you have to do is ask me.
All right. Why don't you tell me about...
Yes, Arthur? About what?
No. No, I don't want to know. I don't want you to tell me. Suddenly I realized I was afraid to know. I was afraid. I should leave now, but I couldn't leave. It was Ilse. She attracted, repelled, fascinated, and horrified me, all in single flashes of blasting emotion. I felt the presence of a great grey curtain ready to roll back at any moment and leave me on the brink of an awful adventure. And I knew the village held its breath, watched and waited. And then on the evening of the 5th day, the whole ghastly secret exploded into hideous life. After dinner, Ilse had asked me to walk with her. It was the first time I'd been outside the inn after dark. We walked through the village in the moonlight, saying very little, and came finally to the stone rampart above the sunken plain. We were quite alone.
Look, Arthur.
Hmm?
It's a full moon tonight. Do you know what that means?
Yes? It means I can see more clearly how beautiful you are.
Do you really believe that? Do you think I'm beautiful?
Like a soft, sleek leopard in a warm jungle of shadows. But wait, I'll see you even better in a moment.
Arthur, what are you doing?
These dry leaves by the wall. They'll make an excellent bonfire. There. There, you see?
No. No.
What's wrong?
The fire. No, Arthur, put it out.
All right, Ilse. Don't worry, it's all right. There. Didn't even get a chance to get started. There, you see, it's out.
Yes, I see.
Why did it bother you so much?
Don't you remember? Don't you remember the fire?
No. What fire?
No. Don't talk of it. Look at me instead. Look at me, Arthur.
Yes, Ilse?
Arthur, do you love me?
Yes. Yes, Ilse, I love you.
I'm glad. That means you'll come back to us then.
I don't know what you mean, Ilse.
You can know everything tonight, if you want to.
Yes, I do. I do, Ilse.
You must know a part of it already, down inside. You must remember some of it, don't you?
Yes. It's like something buried for centuries, deep inside of me. Now it's beginning to come alive.
Let it come alive. Don't fight against it. You belonged to us once, long ago, and you still belong.
Yes. I seem to know that.
That's why you came back. You heard me calling. You heard them calling. And you came seeking the old life again.
Yes, but... Ilse, I'm afraid.
Are you afraid of me? Look at me.
Ilse...
Will you live the old life again? With me tonight?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I've known that you would, because I own you, Arthur. You belong to me, and I want you to come with me. I shall never let you escape from me again.
Yes, yes.
Go back to the inn, then. Wait for me, Arthur. I shall come for you. Tonight.
Back at the inn, I paced the floor of my room, a tense, uncontrollable excitement driving me along in a nervous frenzy. The dry crypt of the memory had broken open, and all the things I'd hidden away for centuries poured into my consciousness. I knew now why I'd come here. I knew what I was going to do. And I knew that I was lost. I sensed the rising stir of movement throughout the inn, and outside in the courtyard below my window. I knew what to expect when I threw open the window. From every window of the inn and from those of the houses about the court were leaping great monstrous beasts with soft dark fur and eyes that gleamed with eerie phosphorescence. Cats! Cats of human size! This was the secret of Malton. Lycanthropy. The witchcraft of centuries long dead and buried. The half-human cries floated up to me, and the moon cast their dark shadows on the ground as they padded across the courtyard and vanished through the narrow streets of the village, heading for a hideous rendezvous. This is what I'd been. This is what I wanted to be now. I scarcely heard the door of the room open behind me.
Are you ready, my love? Shall we join them?
Ilse.
Here, Arthur, the sacred bomb, made of vervain and mistletoe and blind things out of the sea. Remember?
Yes. Yes, I remember.
Take it. Use it. We'll change now. Transform. Leap from the window and join them. Lead us again, Arthur.
Yes. But not here, Ilse. Not yet. Wait until we get there. Then we'll change.
If you wish. Come then, Arthur, to the stone wall above the grove. That's where we'll change, on the stone rampart.
In the grove on the sunken plain beneath the wall, insane shadows writhed in the moonlight and postured in the luminous mist. 1,000 of the Devil's Own were dancing in an unearthly music born from the harmony of the black sacrifice, crying out in delirious abandon, calling to the thing that now lived inside of me and struggled screaming in my skull, trying to answer them back. I fought against them, fought against Ilse, pleading and clinging with her soft arms about my neck.
Now, Arthur, come with me now if you love me.
I love you, but I can't do it. I can't do it, not again, Ilse.
Yes, my love, only an instant to change, and then we'll live forever.
Is it living without a soul?
Does it matter when I'm here?
No. No, once before I escaped. But I could never escape again. This time there'd be no turning back.
Am I not worth it? Look at me, my love.
I clung to the very edge of sanity, thought that I'd not be lost and damned forever. And at that very moment I knew what I could do.
Wait. What are you doing?
I found a match in my pocket, struck and dropped it into the dry leaves that lay banked along the whole length of the stone wall.
No, Arthur, don't. I can't come to you through the fire. You're driving me away.
Yes, go into the valley, Ilse. Goodbye, Ilse. Goodbye.
You fool! You fool!
I turned from the wall of flame that for a few minutes would shut me off from the valley, ran through the moonlit streets, not back toward the Inn of the Golden Bough, but down the long road that led away from that cursed village of Malton.
Well, Mr. Llewellyn, I find this one of the most interesting cases of hallucination I've encountered since I began the practice of psychiatry.
I tell you it really happened, Doctor.
And having investigated your story a bit during the past week, I'm in a position now to answer most of the questions that have been worrying you since you came back to London.
What do you mean, investigated?
I went up to Hereford and looked over some of the old records there. And then I motored over to Malton for a couple of hours.
Well, then you know it's all true. You saw it. You know I was there.
Oh, there's no question but what you were there, Mr. Llewellyn. The lady who runs the inn showed me your name in the register. Said you'd left quite suddenly without taking your luggage or paying your bill. She was really quite put out.
I see. Well, what about the records, Doctor? The ones you spoke of?
I think they really explain the whole thing, Mr. Llewellyn. It seems that during the 14th century, the village of Malton became a kind of headquarters in that part of the country for the practice of witchcraft.
Yes. Go on.
Numerous trials were held there in the late 1300s, and a great many men and women were convicted of sorcery and burned to death.
Yes.
In the records of a trial in 1372, I found the name of an Arthur Llewellyn and of Ilsa and her mother.
That proves it, then.
It proves a clear case of hallucination. You knew that story before you went there, not consciously, but somewhere down in your latent memory.
I knew nothing of it before.
That man was an ancestor of yours. The story must have been known in your family. When you arrived in Malton accidentally, the association of the name just pulled the trigger, and your imagination did the rest.
But, Doctor, my parents died when I was 4. I've never been around any of my family.
No matter. You see, a childhood memory is amazingly persistent at times.
Yes. Yes, I suppose it is. I knew then what I had to do. The only thing I could do. There'd be no use in talking further with the doctor. He'd find some phrase of science to cover everything. He'd even try to explain away the mark I still carried across my shoulder, where Ilsa had thrown her arm about me in those last mad minutes on the rampart. A mark that was covered with a soft gray fur, like the fur of a cat. Yes, I knew now what had to be done, and must be done while I still retained my sanity. One last act, final and irrevocable. An act that begins by walking into the railway station at Charing Cross.
Good evening, sir. May I help you?
Yes. I'd like a ticket to Malton.
Malton? I don't believe I have.
It's a village on the Swansea line near the border of Wales.
Oh, yes. Yes, here it is. I don't believe I've ever sold a ticket to Malton before.
I don't doubt it.
Let's see now. 4 and 6. Single fare. First class. Did you wish a return or one way? What did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. Make it one way.
Escape. Produced by William N. Robeson and directed by Norman MacDonald, today brought you Ancient Sorceries by Algernon Blackwood. Adapted for radio by Les Crutchfield, with Paul Frees as Arthur Llewellyn, Kay Brinker as Ilsa, Anne Morrison as Madam, and William Conrad as the Doctor. Music is conceived by Cy Fewer, with Eddie Dunstetter at the console. Next week,
After you've had a hard day at the office or bending over a hot stove, next week at this time, when your problems seem too much for you, we offer you escape.
Next week, we bring you another exciting story of high adventure. Goodbye, then, until this same time next week, when once again we offer you Escape. This is CBS, where 99 million people gather every week. The Columbia Broadcasting System.
Worried about income tax? Wonder if spring will ever come? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape.
You were
book-lined study, listening to the idiot gibberings of a parrot, and beside you, caressing you, is an invisible thing, a loathsome thing from which you must escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to the West End of London, to a little house just off Hyde Park, where lived a man who didn't like people. Tonight we escape in the remarkable tale of Robert Hitchens, how love came to Professor Gildia.
It has been said that no night ever passes over London town that sees not some strange and curious event, some occurrence too incredible to bear repeating in the light of day. How horribly true are those words. It's been over a year now since the night I first met the amazing Professor Gildia. I had delivered a sermon at the rectory of St. Swithin in the East End and was passing through the foyer in departure when I was accosted brusquely by an odd little man, remarkably sharp-featured, his face adorned by a pointed black goatee.
Pardon me a moment, please. I believe you're Father Murchison?
Yes, that's right. But I don't think I've had the pleasure
Perhaps you've heard of me. My name's Gildia, Professor Gildia.
Gildia, why, yes, you're the famous psychologist.
Yes, psychologist, biologist, anthropologist, philosopher, and that takes care of that. Sir, I never attend religious services.
It appears you've done so tonight.
I came for one reason, to hear you. Find out why an otherwise normal colleague of mine thinks you're the most convincing speaker he's ever listened to.
And did you find out?
No. Your talk was intelligent, logical. Therefore, it could never convince anybody of anything.
Thank you. You're a direct man, Professor Gildia.
No time to be anything else. I'd like to have you dine with me, Father Murchison. Say a week from tonight, 7 o'clock. I live at 100 Hyde Park in the West End.
Can't we make it 2 weeks? I'm preaching at St. Saviour's that night, just round the corner from the park. And I'm afraid it'll have to be nearer 8:30 than 7. The service isn't over so early.
We can't even agree on a time for dinner. Very well, 8:30, 2 weeks. Good night, sir.
Perhaps if I had known then what but no matter. I kept the appointment, of course. And after an excellent dinner, we climbed the stairs to Gildia's study, a large book-lined room running the width of the house with windows at the end overlooking the park. In front of those windows stood the one incongruous thing in the room, a cage holding a large gray parrot. In fact, as I recall, it was the parrot that was responsible for my first becoming aware of what exact opposites Gildia and I really were. The same parrot that was responsible for so many other things that happened later.
Quiet, Napoleon, quiet. One day that infernal squawking of yours will drive me to wring your neck.
Somehow it surprises me, Gildia. I mean, you're keeping a pet.
I possess a parrot, Father Murchison, that's all. Made a study of the imitative faculties of animals some months ago. Bought the bird then, never got rid of it.
I see.
Started the bad habit of scratching the fool thing's head. Loves it, you see. In 5 minutes he'll be screaming for more of it. Why would it surprise you so much if I kept a pet?
Well, because I believe you're the most self-sufficient man I ever met.
More than that, actually. I detest affection, any display of sentimentality.
But you do feel the need of close human sympathy in your life.
None whatsoever. A reasonable amount of companionship, naturally, but that's all. Father Murchison, I'm one person who does not love his fellow men.
Nonetheless, some of your discoveries have been of great benefit to mankind.
Oh, entirely accidental.
I thought you'd be liking your coffee now, sir.
Oh, yes, Pitting. Put it there on the table, please.
Thank you, sir. Will there be anything else, sir?
No, that's all, Pitting.
Yes, sir.
An excellent servant there. I know nothing of Pitting's thoughts or feelings, nor he of mine. Perfect relationship.
And if a crisis occurred, if you needed to call on him as a friend.
It would take a considerable crisis.
But what about the parrot? Surely you must regard it with some affection, otherwise you'd get rid of it.
Napoleon? Merely a specimen. The bird's as devoid of sentimentality as I am. Can only imitate whatever he sees and hears.
Gildia, have you ever been in love?
Neither with anyone in particular nor with love itself. Being in love, as you put it, or having someone in love with me, would be the most monstrous and horrible situation I can possibly imagine.
All of a sudden, I feel a very great sense of pity.
For whom?
For you. Yet, as different as we were, my life dedicated to all humanity, Gildia's life stripped of its own humanity, I called again at the house at Hyde Park many times, and we became friends. We talked away many evening hours in the months that followed, sitting by the book-covered table in the long study, the gray parrot chattering away in the background, with the lamplight barely reaching the farther corners. It was on such a night not long ago that the thing began. Gildia had seemed uncommonly nervous since dinner, and had spent much of the time pacing in front of the windows that faced the park.
Confound it, Murchison, I can't seem to relax tonight. I ever feel a completely unaccountable presentiment, a sense that something remarkable was about to happen.
Oh, yes. And usually it never did. Turned out to be the effect of too much coffee.
No, it's not that. Coffee doesn't bother me. Nothing does.
Well, then suppose you stop pacing the floor and sit down. You're wearing me out.
Wearing me out. Wearing me out.
Have you noticed how well Napoleon's learned to imitate your voice?
Yes, and it's almost insulting at times.
The worst thing is feeling such a strong compulsion to do something which I know to be ridiculous.
Exactly what is it you're talking about, Gildia?
Foolish even to mention it. But I wonder if you'd pardon me for a few minutes.
Why, of course.
Help yourself to more coffee. I'll be right back.
Bye. Goodbye.
I walked over and stood stroking the feathers of the parrot through the bars of his cage. I'd grown rather fond of the ugly bird, but it always startled me to hear him mimic some phrase of mine or Gildia's. Napoleon,
Napoleon!
You're a true creature of the devil.
Creature devil, creature devil.
I happened to glance out the window toward the park across the street.
Hello.
The arc lamp at the corner threw a dim gleam across a bench set just inside the paling. And I was surprised to see Professor Gildia moving about the bench, peering under it, behind it, staring into the shadows nearby. He kept this up for some minutes, then crossed the street and came back toward the house. In a moment, I heard him ascending the stairs.
Hello.
Father Murchison, has anyone entered this room since I went out?
Why, no. You mean Pitting, of course, but he hasn't been in.
Oh, strange. Very strange.
I saw you across the street in the park. What were you doing?
I thought I saw something. Wondered what it was, that's all.
Did you find out?
No. What's wrong with that parrot? Never made a sound like that before.
What do you mean? He seems all right.
Napoleon, stop that!
What was it you thought you saw?
Nothing. As you said, it most likely it was the coffee, only I'm very much afraid that... No. In this day and age, it's impossible.
It was nearly a week later that I received a phone call in my quarters at the rectory. Father Murchison here.
This is Pitting, sir, Professor Gildia's man.
Oh, yes, Pitting. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir. The master would greatly appreciate your calling at the house this evening, if it's convenient, sir.
Oh, anything wrong?
I couldn't say, sir.
But why didn't he phone himself? He isn't ill.
I think not. He suggested 8 o'clock, sir. May I tell him you'll come?
Yes. Yes, by all means. Tell him I'll be there at 8.
There's no use beating about the bush, Father Murchison. I am nervous. Of course I am. Plenty of reason for it.
You're working too hard.
Now I'm working too hard. The other night it was coffee. As a matter of fact, it's neither one. Be quiet, Napoleon.
Maybe you'd better tell me what is the matter, Gildia.
Do Do you feel the presence in this room of anyone beside the two of us?
Well, there's Napoleon, of course.
No. No, I don't mean the parrot. He senses it too, though.
Senses what?
When you were here last week, I left the house for a few minutes, you remember?
Yes.
I'd been watching someone sitting on that bench across in the park, a shadowy sort of figure. I had to find out what it was.
But you found nothing. You told me when you came back.
That's right. But I'd left the front door open. And when I came back in, I felt suddenly that someone or something had entered ahead of me.
Oh, now really, Gildear.
I knew also that they'd found their way to this room.
But I was here all the time. No one came in.
Father Murchison, whoever or whatever came into the house that night came into this room, is still here right now.
You, Gildear. A scientist.
Yes. Ridiculous, isn't it? But it's true. I'm only able to feel its presence. Napoleon can see it. Look at him now. Wouldn't you say he was watching something over there in that far corner of the room?
No, I'd say he was just being as foolish as a parrot usually is.
You, a skeptic?
About this, yes. You've been working too hard. You need a vacation.
I haven't told you the worst part of it. Would you say that I'm an attractive man?
Frankly, no. Oh, I suppose to a certain type of society woman?
No. That's not what I'm talking about.
Well, then what are you talking about?
I don't know whether this intruder is a woman, man, child, animal, but whatever it is, it holds a vast affection for me.
What?
You imagine anything so utterly monstrous, horrible? Murchison, the thing is in love with me.
Love me! Love me! Ah!
I could not, would not accept Gildear's belief. And yet the alternative was even more frightful. For I could only decide that the long hours of study and lecturing had affected his mind, and brought him, in fact, to the verge of insanity. I persuaded him finally to get away for a while, to leave the house and forget his professional problems, take a short trip. I accompanied him to Victoria Station, saw him off on the boat train, and then, caught up in my duties, I had little time to consider the strange affair for nearly 10 days. Father Murchison here.
I hope I haven't disturbed you.
Professor Gildear, then you're back in London.
Oh, yes, I've been back for 3 days.
You should have called me. How was the trip?
Quite pleasant. I took passage on a Channel coaster. Sea air was wonderful.
You weren't troubled on the trip?
Oh, no, not at all. It waited here for me.
What?
Could you come over here tonight?
You mean now?
Yes, if you could. You see, I can prove it to you now.
Very well. I'll come right over. I stood there by the phone and shivered. The thing had become so real to him now that he felt he could go away and leave it, then come back and find it waiting for him.
That's why I didn't call you when I first came back. I wanted to be sure. So I've waited 3 days, and every day has been worse than the one before.
In what way? What do you mean?
I mean the thing was waiting for me here. Glad I was back, fawned all over me. Came more insistently obnoxious all the time.
Do you mean you've seen this thing, heard it?
No, I haven't seen it, haven't heard it, but I know it's here. I can feel it, sense it. Try to put it in words, and it becomes absurd.
If you'd like some unsolicited advice, call in a doctor, have him look you over.
And what doctor in London knows any more about the human mind than I do?
I know, but when it's your own mind...
No, you're thinking of hysteria, hallucination. I know all the symptoms. It's not that simple. Anyway, I told you I'd prove it to you. Now, you'll notice I've thrown a cover over Napoleon's cage.
Yes, I've been wondering about it.
Part of my proof. He's been here, you know, all the time I was gone, here in this room.
Yes, but I
want you to get behind those curtains with me. Then I'll reach out and pull the cloth off his cage. I don't want him to see us.
I don't know what you're hoping to prove, but... All right, come on.
Ready? I'll uncover him.
We crouched there behind the curtains watching the parrot. He protested a while at being so rudely disturbed by some unseen agency, then climbed about the cage with claws and beak, pecked at crumbs, and appeared entirely normal. After a time, he began to fix his attention on a spot across the room. There was nothing there.
Watch him. Look at him now.
In the parrot's mind, at least, someone or something was approaching the cage, and yet the room was empty. Whatever it was apparently had reached the cage now, and Napoleon welcomed it with friendly chortling. The hairs rose on the back of my neck. The bird was cooing and gurgling as it did when I or Gildia scratched the feathers on his head. I could almost fancy that I saw long, white, ghostly fingers reaching through the bars of the cage.
Watch him and listen to him. He's talking to the thing, imitating it. See what you think.
The bird was moving about in the cage now, nodding his head in a very peculiar manner, uttering the most extraordinary sounds. I began to realize he was imitating the thing he saw standing by his cage. And then the full horror of it came over me. I tried to hide the thought from Gildia, but he'd already seen it in my eyes.
So you see it too. That's all I wanted to know, that I wasn't imagining it. No point in hiding there any longer. That was my proof.
But perhaps someone was here while you were gone.
I have questioned Pitting and the cook. No one has been here.
But it can't be. Such a thing can't be.
Father Murchison, it is.
But where? Where is it now? Can you tell me where it is?
Not exactly. Somewhere here in the room, not too far away. I can feel that. Napoleon, of course, can see it.
There is some rational explanation. There has to be.
You're whistling in the dark, Father. You recognize the same thing I did.
I know what you mean, of course.
Well, I can't stand much more of it. If it were only something I could fight, strike out at. I'm not a coward. But I can't see it, hear it. I can only feel it trying to touch me somehow, trying to get close to me, drooling with desire and affection, fondness for me. And I can't keep it away. It gets closer all the time.
Gildia, you've got to get hold of yourself.
Get hold of myself? You saw the way that parrot imitated this thing, those mannerisms, that gibberish. You know what it means as well as I do.
I saw it, but it can't possibly...
Can't you feel how hideous it is for me? I can't stop it. The thing makes love to me, caresses me. And whatever it is, it has no mind. You saw that. That thing is a slobbering idiot.
I walked home at a late hour, trying desperately to think of some reasonable answer to the whole strange affair. I could not accept Gildia's explanation of the actions of the parrot, though the bird had produced an extraordinary illusion of an invisible presence in that room. In a day gone by, perhaps I might have been called in to deal with an evil spirit. I thought of retribution. Gildia had always borne an unnatural distaste for human love. Was he now being forced to endure the unnatural love of a monstrous being as punishment? I cast such thoughts away from me. Yet I could not quite accept the only other reasonable solution, that my friend was insane. It was very late when I fell asleep. The following evening, I preached at Warwick Chapel and returned to my quarters about 9. I found that Pitting had called a short time before and left a rather puzzling message. Implored that you come to Hyde Park at once. Otherwise, I cannot answer for the consequences. But what is it you're trying to say, Pitting? He's not himself. In what way is he not himself?
I can only suggest, sir, that you talk to him. Here we are.
Yes, come in.
I'll leave you now, sir.
Oh, Murchison, come in.
Gildia, what in the name of heaven is wrong? Pitting said that you'd been upset,
Pitting,
but he...
an inhuman machine.
What happened? What did he do?
Nothing. That's just it. Nothing.
But I don't know...
Oh, you warned me about it once, said I'd meet a crisis, need him as a friend, and he wouldn't be there. Well, it happened.
Look here. I'm going to call a doctor. I've never seen you in a state like this before.
No, I don't need a doctor. I'm all right now. For a little while anyway. At least I think I am.
Then what was it? What happened?
That thing touched me. Really touched me. I mean, for the first time, it's only been trying to before. The only way I can put it, it rubbed itself against my soul. Oh, it was horrible.
Now, Gildia, you've got...
Don't tell me to get hold of myself. I know what I'm saying. I'm sorry. But if you'd felt it for yourself, you'd know what I mean. It was disgusting, filthy. If it had lasted one more minute, I know I should have gone screaming mad.
But you don't feel it now.
No, not now. I lost my head, I guess. I struck out with my fists, I tore at myself, screamed for help. Pitting came and thought I was drunk. But I could feel it touching me, sickening, soft and tender, inside of me.
But it left you then. You forced it away.
Yes, but it's still in this room somewhere. But it hasn't tried to touch me again.
Well, that settles it. Gildia, you're leaving here tonight. It didn't follow you when you took that trip before. It stayed here. That's one way you can be free of it.
Then, you believe in the thing, too. Believe it's real.
It's real for you, and that's enough. Now, if I remember it, you're giving a lecture at Oxford the last of the week. You're going on up there now. I'll help you pack.
Well, I could do that. I could stay at the Grosvenor tonight and take a train in the morning. It's right near the station.
And it's all agreed.
Wait. Look at Napoleon. It's standing there by his cage. He's talking to it, imitating it. Can you imagine what that thing must look like?
Never mind. Let me help you start packing.
But I didn't tell you what it really did this evening. What came the closest to driving me insane.
It doesn't matter.
The thing kissed me, Murchison. But not from the outside. What? I could feel it, warm and wet, kissing my lips from the inside.
Gildia stayed at the hotel that night. Caught the train out to Oxford the next morning. 4 days later, I received a wire from him. Am still feeling a bit shaky, but everything else is all right. No sign of any visitor. Why don't you try to come up for the lecture Friday night, and please get rid of Napoleon for me. Signed, Gildia. On sudden impulse, I decided to accept his invitation. My train was late, and I arrived at Oxford with only time enough to go directly to the seminar. I slid into my seat just as Gildia was introduced and began his talk. He was pale and perhaps a bit drawn, but seemed otherwise composed and in control of himself. As I sat there, my mind wandered away from his talk, seeking some solution for the horrible problem which I regarded as being as much my own as Gildia's. I decided I would try to persuade him to sell the house in Hyde Park Place, since his strange fixation seemed to be bound up with it, and try to find lodgings elsewhere. Some 10 minutes passed when suddenly I noticed Gildia was becoming very nervous. He faltered in his talk. He seemed to be confused. He stood there on the platform, deathly pale, his hands out as though pushing something away from him. I knew what was wrong. Pardon me, please. Could I get through? Pardon me. Let me get to him, please. I'm his friend. Gildia, can you hear me?
Father Murchison?
Yes. Everything's all right.
It came here, found me out. It rubbed up against me on the platform. It's no use. Take me back to London.
We arrived back in London late the next afternoon. Gildia was a broken old man. He shivered continually, trembled as though shaken by a chill. He claimed to sense the awful presence of that thing always nearby us, accompanying us. And he was constantly terror-stricken lest it might try to touch him again. I stayed with him in the house in Hyde Park, and as night drew on, we sat in the long, book-filled study on the second floor. Pitting brought coffee to us, and then withdrew. We found little to talk about, and the silence of the room seemed doubly oppressive without the familiar chatter of the parrot in the background.
What did you do with him, Murchison? Napoleon, I mean.
I boarded him with a pet shop in Shaftesbury Avenue. I thought you might want him back again after you'd reconsidered.
No. No, I won't want him back. You still can feel its presence, can't you?
No, Gildia, I'm afraid I can't.
I wish to heaven I couldn't. It's been here with us now, you know.
Now, please.
It doesn't matter. It's no use. I can't fight it any longer. There's no way to fight it.
Perhaps that may be the answer. To stop fighting it. You said yourself that you felt it was fond of you, meant you no harm. Then why not stop fighting? Try to return its fondness, its love, if you will.
You don't know what you're asking. Even the thought of it sickens me. Fondness, love for that thing.
Perhaps it may be the only way out.
Then there's no way out. I tell you, Murchison, I've only one feeling for that creature, and that's hatred. Hatred. Disgust and hatred.
Please, try to be calm.
Wait. Wait.
What is it?
Perhaps that's it. Listen! Whatever you are, beast or devil, I hate you, do you hear? I hate you! Murchison, that's doing it. It's recoiling, withdrawing, I can feel it.
Gildia, please.
I hate you! I hate you! Murchison, it wants to leave. It's beginning to hate me, too, but it wants to leave now. Open the door. Go downstairs and open the front door. Open the front door and let it out.
All right, Gildia, if you'll feel better about it.
It wants to take me along, but I know how to fight it now. Go, Murchison, hurry! I hate you! I hate you! I hate you!
I ran down the stairs and threw open the front door. I stood there, breathing in the night air. It was clear and cold, and the stars hung overhead. I looked across to the park and saw the glow from the street lamp falling on the empty bench directly opposite. And at that moment came a sound that froze my blood with horror. I stood there, paralyzed, unable to move. Seconds passed, perhaps minutes, I don't know. I don't know how long I stood there. I glanced across at the empty bench, and for one moment thought I saw a shadow sitting on it. A vague shadow as Gildia saw it one night weeks before. And then the bench was empty, and I heard Pitting running down the stairs.
Come quickly. Professor Gildia, it was his heart, I think.
Yes. Yes, I believe it was his heart.
But Father Murchison, he's lying up there, sir. He's dead.
Dead? Dead, Pitting? I hope so. I sincerely hope so.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you How Love Came to Professor Gildia by Robert Hitchens, adapted for radio by Les Crutchfield, with Louis Van Rooten as Professor Gildia, Parley Bear as Father Murchison, Harry Bartell as Pitting, and Paul Frees as the Parrot. Music is conceived and conducted by Cy Fuhrer. Next week.
When you're tired out from doing nothing all weekend, when Blue Monday stares you in the face, next week at this time, when your problems just seem too much for you, we offer you Escape.
Next week, we bring you another exciting story of high adventure. Good night, then, until the same time next week, when once again we offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe.